Reed, thank you so much for doing this. It's great to have you on Bloomberg, and congrats on the book.
Thank you. We've been working hard on No Rules Rules, so it's great to see it finally come out.
You are the CEO of a multi-billion-dollar company, and your time is precious, but you wanted to spend some time writing this book about your culture. What do you want readers, other CEOs, other companies to take away from this?
You know, we filled the book with stories about how Netflix really works. So Erin Meyer, my co-author, is a business school professor. We gave her unfettered access. She interviewed hundreds of Netflix employees about the reality. So the book is me talking about the theory and her talking about the reality, which sometimes is wonderful and sometimes is a little challenging and ugly. And that's the reality. So we hope in that tension, there's something really worth reading.
For more than 2 decades, you've been working to build what you call a culture of freedom and responsibility. And over those same 2 decades, Netflix has survived and thrived despite massive technological shifts and become one of the top tech and entertainment companies in the world. Do you believe that your success is a direct result of the culture? If so, how?
Yeah, our culture is really geared around flexibility instead of efficiency. And so we have very few rules. We're very inventive. We're on the edge of chaos. That happens sometimes, but that helps you adjust. And we had to do a lot of adjustment coming from DVD by mail in the US to then doing streaming of other people's television, sort of rerun TV. To then figure out how to break into original series and then later original movies and how to expand around the world. So now about 2/3 of our members are not in the US. So, you know, really big successful expansions there, big successful expansions with building our studio like Stranger Things. And that's all really due to the culture, both attracting incredible people and being very flexible so that we didn't stay really focused on the DVD by mail business.
How is the pandemic changing the way you run the business and how you create a culture of maximum candor when so many people are working from home? And some CEOs like Jack Dorsey has said his employees can work from home forever. Is that okay in your book?
Well, we definitely want employees to be productive. So it's sort of however they're most productive. I think for most of us, we want to get back into the office. We want to have human contact, have discussions and debate. And the technology of Zoom and Google are good, but it's not yet the same as being in person. So I'm sure like most companies will have more people spending more days from home. But for me, the human contact and the interaction you can do in trying to understand some challenging topic is great to be in person.
So do you think that working from home forever is an overreaction?
Well, I think there's different companies and different cultures. So I'll bet there's some that will do that. And, you know, it'll be great for them to try that. But at Netflix, I think we're a very human company. We want to really have human interaction, and that it will be better to have that be in person than only virtual.
Now, one thing I still don't quite get is how you get through a day, sometimes months, without making a decision. When's the last time you did make a big decision, and where do you still feel the need to step in?
Well, about a month ago, I made a big decision to promote Ted Sarandos to co-CEO at Netflix with me, which was a great decision. We've been working together for more than 20 years. And really, we have been acting as co-CEOs anyway. And we wanted to give him the recognition and the platform of really his existing role. And that's been great. So that's a big decision. But I try not to make decisions about particular titles or particular product features or particular countries or marketing campaigns. And I see myself as really the coach who's trying to stimulate, you know, good thinking amongst all of the great players.
So when it comes to TED, co-CEO arrangements are highly unusual and they often don't work. I've covered many in tech that are not intact anymore. Why do you think this will work?
It's really dependent on the two people. It is an unusual situation. But if you think of every family, they're generally two CEOs running the family, and you just have to be really close. And Ted and I, again, have been together for more than 20 years. And with the two of us, I'm totally confident it'll work great.
The pandemic, in many ways, has played right into Netflix's hands. You're in a perfect position for this moment. That said, production has come to a halt. Projects are backing up. I'm not complaining, but it's getting a little harder to find something new to watch every night. How do you think the entertainment industry looks different when it emerges from this?
Well, it's definitely a challenge from the lack of production, particularly in the US. In Europe, we're able to go back to production, and in much of Asia. But in the US, it's still quite slow and challenging. And that's going to have an effect more next year than this year, not only for us, but for our competitors also. But everyone's figuring out how to make it work, just like if there's a writer's strike or other things that have happened over the last 50 years. And so in the long term, I think COVID is just a little blip in a historical footnote, kind of like the 1918 pandemic that we read about today.
You've said that there is a space for many streaming services in the market. I know you've been impressed by what Disney has accomplished. We've just seen HBO Max launch anew. How many of these services, though, do you think actually have the potential to reach 100 million or 500 million people? And will there be consolidation, and who's left standing?
Was a huge difference between Disney Plus, which is over 60 million subscribers in the first year, and HBO Max, which is 3 or 4 million. So one of those is like really incredible. I would not have guessed you could get to 60 plus million in the first year. But we'll see depending on what the quality of the services are. I do think over time there'll be additional consolidation like Fox Disney, which has proven to be great for Disney. But there'll be probably some more of that because consumers want, fewer brands, that give a wide range of entertainment rather than too many.
Now, as the center of gravity for Netflix shifts from Silicon Valley to Hollywood, and you're hiring more of these Hollywood executives who've been trained in different worlds, how do you make sure that Netflix doesn't become just another entertainment company?
Well, we'd love to be a great entertainment company. We don't want to be a lousy one. So it's taking the best of studio cultures. Think about long-term brand management. And again, think about, Harry Potter and how well developed that brand was. And Star Wars. And, we don't yet have those franchises. So there's a lot we still have to learn from traditional media and the skills that they have at stimulating creativity. But of course, we want to stay very flexible, always learning, very customer focused, very member focused on what we do with our programming. And we're able to do that because we're producing all over the world. So when we have a Spanish show like Casa de Papel, or a German show like Dark, or, a British show like Sex Education, they can be big hits all around the world.
So speaking of international growth, what are the new frontiers that you're most excited about? Where do you think Netflix will be making the biggest breakthroughs in the next 5 years?
Well, we've been very strong in premium television for a number of years since Orange and Stranger Things. Now we're getting very strong in movies, both at the awards level and at the consumer pleasing level. Unscripted has really developed for us with Floor is Lava, and Tiger King. And animation is just beginning, so that will be a big focus for us for the number of years of expanding that category. And then we've got great stories coming out of Italy, coming out of Spain, Poland. So some really big successes.
So how many years of growth are left before Netflix has to think about something new? And what might that be? I mean, would you be open to a big acquisition, video games, social media?
We always try to keep an open mind. My first company, we acquired a lot of companies, and so we've kind of been through that, not, afraid of it. It's got some good and bad properties, but mostly we want to make our service better. And there's, at least 5, 10, 15, 20 years of growth, really focused on making our service better and better. And we've always added new types of programming, for example, starting in series and then expanding into film and nonfiction and now animation. So we'll just continue to expand in what we offer in the service.
Now, I understand, you've been complimentary of what Disney has been able to accomplish with their streaming service, and arguably Disney has a very different culture than Netflix. Have you learned anything from Disney, from Amazon, from Facebook or Microsoft, where you're on the board?
Yeah, we've learned a ton from every one of those companies. Like Microsoft, the way they think about the 10-year picture is incredible. I mean, they've got such a long-term view of the trends, in the world and how they approach that, where I'd only seen people thinking about next year. So that's a great example there. And then in Disney, we kind of talked about brand management, but their kind of long-term brand stewardship, is phenomenal. The way they do consumer products, we have a lot of catch up to do before we get close to being as good as them at consumer products. But we're definitely focused on closing that gap. We got a great new group, and so that's moving forward.